Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag. I'm Jared Johnson, and we received a lot of good questions from inside the Red Raiders subscribers this week as the Red Raiders prepare to open the season in about 24 hours from now, or a little over 24 hours from now, against Abilene Christian. That's a 6:30 p.m. kickoff Saturday at the Jones, unveiling the new south end zone, or the newly renovated south end zone, and all of that. New uniforms, lots of excitement around the season opener. And like I said, we have some good questions, so let's dive right into them. First one comes from Nas Raider, who wants to know, what are the top three things that I'll be watching for during the ACU game to validate what I feel about this year's football team? Well, I'll start out on offense and the receiving core. I do believe that Texas Tech has upgraded the receiving core. The Josh Kelly, Caleb Douglases of the world, Micah Hudson, to go with Coy Aiken, who returns, Dre McCray, those players, Jordan Brown that also returned. But I do believe that the newcomers have added to it. Also throw in Jalen Conyers and John Carlos Miller at tight end to augment what you have in Mason Tharp. So that's one thing I'm looking for. Another thing is just the overall improvement on defense in terms of guys that have been recruited in the last couple of years starting to hit in the two deep. Some in some cases start, but definitely in the two deep on all three levels of defense, which I believe means that Texas Tech is going to field definitely a deeper team, but also a bigger and faster defense. So I want to see them play with that Red Raider speed and violence, as the coaches call it. I saw that from McGuire's teams at Cedar Hill. Like, that stood out to me before I had a conversation with him, but before I really had an idea about who Joey McGuire was for real, his teams, just for me, covering multiple high school teams a week and throughout a season, when I was at the 4-Star Telegram, when I saw Cedar Hill play, their speed and violence, their aggressiveness, just how fast their defense is played really stood out to me. And that's what he's trying to do here at Texas Tech. And they're starting to get their guys into two deep. And I'll be anxious to see, I want to see that starting off with the season opener against Abilene Christian. And then I have to go back to offense, and I want to see the offensive line obviously pass protect well, but I want to see them get a push in the run game. I mean, no disrespect to Abilene Christian, but them being an FCS school, I do expect Texas Tech to have a physical dominance, including, with Texas Tech's offensive line. So I want to see, Vinny Scurry, Sheridan Wilson, Davion Carter, all those guys specifically on the interior, but the entire offensive line really get a push in the running game and allow all the running backs, including Taj Brooks, have some big holes to run through and be able to run the ball pretty much at will. It's what I want to see. And then moving forward, we'll see how it goes against Washington State. But those are the three main things I want to see. And that's not counting the obvious, of course, that no major injuries for either team, but, of course, Texas Tech. Next question comes from Syntax. He says, does the familiarity with Tech from their ACU, Abilene Christian's coaches, quarterback, and several other players cause any concern at all? Normally it would. And I do think they'll know some things about the scheme. I don't think McIver was here when Keeley was here, but it's the same similar. It's a similar type offense. But Patterson will know some of the personnel for sure. But there's been a major overhaul since Keith Patterson, Abilene Christian's head coach and former Texas Tech defensive coordinator, was here. I know it was just 3 years ago, but that's a long time in today's college football world. So I would say if the talent level was closer, then I would be more concerned. Crazier things have happened. Could Abilene Christian upset Texas Tech? Okay, sure. But Texas Tech is 32.5-point favorites. They should win this game going away. And I don't think the familiarity is going to play a role in it. I think the personnel mismatch is going to be too much, no matter if you told them. They should be able to call their plays and still be able to do it, to be honest. Raider Power 81 says, who on this team will receive all conference honors by the end of the season? He says on defense, DeRuiter has talked about how much depth they have on the defensive line, but is this a depth of quality players, or are all of them just on equal ability? No, it's a depth of quality. I think in their 2 deep and 3 deep, I think their 2 deep and 3 deep guys would start for a lot of previous Texas Tech defenses, which isn't saying a whole lot, let's be honest, especially in the last decade or so. But I think Jaden Cofield, which is what I was starting to say a minute ago, is a great example that I've talked about him on some videos on the message board, on social media. Just that he's either in the 2 or 3 deep, and he really wowed me in practice with his strength, his pop off the ball, off the snap. It's impressive. They have a very good mixture of some experienced guys who've been slowly working towards starting. For Texas Tech, whether it be Quincy Ledet or Duda Banks, Marion Banks. Then they brought in some experienced transfers, DeBraylon Carroll, James Hanson. DeBraylon Carroll is somebody who's been just lauded, just highly praised by the coaches. And I think he'll either be starting or coming off the bench. It's a good competition there. And then Trayvon McAlpine and Jaden Cofield, it's like that's 3 deep at those 2 positions. And good size, good strength. And I think they bring some different elements, and some of those younger guys need experience, but there's a lot more talent on the defensive line than we've seen at Texas Tech in some time. And to answer your first question, I think Taj has a very good chance to repeat as All Big 12 performer. I'm curious to see what Braylon Lux does. I think he, gets lucky here or there, a lucky bounce where he gets maybe more turnovers than one would expect. Could help him. And if Texas Tech wins, Jacob Rodriguez and Ben Roberts could be in the mix for all conference if they get enough tackles. Josh Kelly, maybe if he catches enough passes. Dre McCray was a preseason All Big 12 return man, so he could as well. So they have some candidates. Now, again, some things will have to go well to help if Texas Tech wins, because that's generally who ends up on those teams, and rightfully so, in my opinion. But they definitely have some candidates who can make all Big 12. All right, next question comes from GB Jack. He says, if the emphasis is really on protecting the quarterback, how much less do I see the offense calling a design runs from Morton compared to previous seasons? Well, it'll be interesting just to see. They shouldn't run a lot of read options or anything like that with him because you don't want Barron running. I think they will call less with Barron in terms of design quarterback runs. I think that's part of the reason they brought in Cameron Brown. I think he is a better passer than many of us were expecting, at least so far. What we saw offseason, spring game, and in fall camp. But if nothing else, he's a guy who could come in and give the defense a different look. I think Zach Kitley said it. He does bring a running option in some short yardage or certain packages and situations. But if teams play zero coverage, where they're up at the line of scrimmage and man on man against some of Tech's receivers, then Brown will make him pay in that regard too. So I think there's no doubt that I would expect less called runs for Barron Morton. And more than that, I think he'll get rid of the ball instead of going and taking some hits for 3 or 4 yard gains. I think he'll get rid of the ball, take the incompletion, go to the next down. At least that's the plan. He is a competitor, I get it, but I hope he takes less hits all the way around. Next question comes from Techosaurus Rex, who says, which fictional TV show would you like to appear in? He says, you have to say at least one line of dialogue. One line of dialogue. Man, I didn't put any thought into this. You all say Cheers because, I like the bar scene. It looks like a fun scene. I do partake in a beer or, a drink here or there. So, and some dialogue. Norm. How about Norm? I watched Cheers when I was a little kid on a little TV that was smaller than my smallest laptop monitor. When I was a kid, I was supposed to be asleep. It was on whatever, like Fox or some late night or 10 or 11, and kind of sneak watch Cheers on my little TV. And I love that show. So think that's what I choose. There's a bunch of action shows I like, but I don't want to put my life in jeopardy like that. So I'll stick with Cheers. Texan wants to know, he says, you're looking good on Insiders Game Day. Thank you. He says, will this be a regular weekly show? He's talking about the Big 12 Insiders podcast, I believe, with Brian Henley, Big B, as I call him. I've done some podcasts with him, talking specifically Texas Tech here earlier this week. And I think I forgot to post it on the board or anything, but I was part of a panel of other 24/7 sports publishers at Big 12 schools. The Iowa State guy, the Oklahoma State guy, West Virginia guy was there for a little while. But yeah, it is. We are planning on it being a weekly thing. There might be a week here or there, depending on our schedules, where one of us isn't there, or lightning hits, like happened in the first show where we lost one of our panelists. But no, it's good. I really like Big B. I like talking football with him. It's different talking Big 12 broader than just focusing on Texas Tech because I get tunnel vision. But I anticipate, for me at least, the podcast being more enjoyable moving forward when we have more data after these teams play more games, starting with this week already. So, no, but look forward every week. I appreciate you saying that, and thank you. And speaking of that, great questions this week. I'm excited to finally get the season kicked off, and thank you for watching. Until next time.